Welcome to Behind the Black Belt, a podcast about the people and black belts of BJJ.
Welcome to Behind the Black Belt. I'm your host, Rich, and my guest today is legendary BJJ black belt, John Will. More than just a black belt in BJJ, John Will has been influencing the martial arts world for the last several decades. Holder of multiple black belts, John traveled the world learning about differing martial arts from such places as Indonesia, Japan, Thailand, and India. Perhaps most famously, John is the first Australian BJJ black belt and one of the original Dirty Dozen, a name for the first 12 individuals awarded their BJJ black belts who are not from Brazil. He's also the creator of the famous Australasian martial arts magazine, Blitz. John is now the owner and head coach of Geelong's Red Cat Academy. John Will, thank you so much for being on Behind the Black Belt. Welcome. And thank you so much for being on the show. How are you today?
Great. Thanks, Richie. Thanks for having me on. And I feel privileged that you've chosen me for your inaugural show.
The privilege is absolutely ours, John. You, sir, are an incredibly interesting person with an unbelievable background, and we've got so much more to cover than we do time. So let's get straight into it. John, why don't you start us off? Why don't you tell us where you were born and where were you raised?
I was born in New South Wales in a little country town called Deniliquin, and then we moved to Victoria when I was very young. My father was a policeman. He was a bit of a rebel. He had a motorbike and met my mum when he was 17, driving around on his old Vincent up in Deniliquin, abducted her, and they eloped and got married. You know, big story. And then he became a cop in Melbourne. And for I think 12 or 13 years, you know, my first 12 or 13 years of life, I guess. And then we moved to a little country town in Gippsland, where he got out of the police force and bought a little corner store in a country town. And then he did an aptitude test one day for computing stuff and became a systems analyst for Myer Corporation, which is quite radical. He's a very smart man.
Yeah.
My father, an autodidact, self-taught, taught me and my sister a lot. It was all about critical thinking, logic, gives us puzzles. And, you know, this was our homework we had to do every night, solve some lateral thinking problem. And so he was a strange cat, but gave us a good grounding in living. And then I went to school I guess, you know, a lot of different spots because we're moving around a little bit, but I did most of my schooling where I currently live now in Geelong. And my high schooling up until, you know, when I was 17 and a half or something, 17, 17 where I did my year 12. Then I took off for Asia because I was all fascinated about the martial arts.
Yeah. Well, tell us about sort of growing up in Geelong. What was that upbringing like? I mean, what was Geelong back then?
Geelong was a kind of it wasn't, look, people say it's got a reputation it had a reputation as being kind of a rough town back then. And it was probably true to a little bit, but you know, wherever your home is, that's your home, you know, and that's normal. So I never saw it that way. People would later on go, oh my goodness, you come from Geelong, you know, go, yeah, what's wrong with Geelong? But, you know, but you know, you had your share of scraps in the streets and stuff like that. But Geelong now is a very different town. It's all the waterfront's all done up, and it's a very sexy, cool place to live, and probably an older population too down here. But Geelong was a good town. You know, and I went to a Catholic school. I'm not religious in any way, but my father sent me to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
St. Joseph's College here in Geelong. But I never liked school. I was happy to leave Australian shores and explore the world.
Yeah.
I was keen. I was ready to go at 15. I wanted to sneak aboard a ship and, you know.
And go exploring.
Just go exploring when I was 15. So I barely turned up at school for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I did well past, you know, you just got to remember what the books say.
And were you close to your sister growing up?
My sister,
Yeah.
no, I've got a sister and a brother, but no, I wasn't really. Our family's not all that close,
Okay.
apparently. For me, again, you normalize, so we were like a bunch of wild wolves. We don't dislike each other, but we're not close. We could go for years without seeing each other and be all
Sure.
absolutely fine with that. Whereas my wife, Melissa, I mean, she talks to her sister on the phone every day. I don't
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
But it is lovely. It's so nice. They're actually really close friends and they have all this thing, but I'm going, I don't get it.
Absolutely. I'm in the same boat as you. I'm the same. I've lots of steps and halves brothers and sisters, and I don't speak to them for years. I haven't even met one of them. And then my wife is so tight with her family. And I look at it, sometimes I'm a bit jealous. I'm like, well, that's a great friendship to have. But and other times I'm like, that sounds like a real pain to maintain constantly. So but when I'm around my sisters and brothers, I like it. So, it's a nice balance, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And tell us about, was mum in the picture as well, John?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. My mum and dad were married for, like a long time. I mean, I don't know, 30, well, maybe not. My wife and I are married we're married 30 years now. It feels like we just got married yesterday.
Yeah.
But so I guess, yeah, I'm getting old, but my parents were, my father died probably 8 or 9 years ago now. I died of cancer. So, but mum was there. She was really good. Mum was not an academic person, just a, sweet little housewife, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But, hardworking parents and all of that. They had to work hard and they were smart, but my father particularly was very, very smart. But, they didn't struggle, but they worked really hard.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I've worked hard. I feel like I've lucked out a little bit and, did some property investment and my life's gone a very different way
Yeah.
than my parents.
And when you think back about your sort of upbringing in childhood, how would you have described, or how do you describe yourself as a child? Were you a bit of a rebel? Were you high energy? Were you, a nerd? What would sort of characterize your
I
upbringing?
don't think I was very like a smart child. I mean, I my father made me do an IQ test. Actually, we did a 1 year stint in Melbourne, and I went to a college called Salesian College in Oakley, and their entry requirement was a 1 week long IQ test, which is
Wow.
bizarre. I mean,
Yeah.
what? I think that's correct. I don't really know, but I ended up doing it was a 5-day IQ test. And so they put me in a class after that, subsequent to that, where they had A, B, and C. So like, what? Anyway, but they put me in this class and I was learning Latin, Italian, French,
Wow.
math. I mean, high math, all this stuff. I hated it.
Yeah.
Apparently I could do really well at IQ tests.
Yeah.
All, I mean, it did not translate well to learning math, so I was
Yeah.
really unhappy with the stress put on me, by that kind of system. So I don't think I was a super happy kid. And I mean, prior to that, I guess a lot of martial artists have this story. They were bullied at school, but that certainly was the case with me in my formative years at school. And it was a result of my father moving around as a policeman and then also moving to a country town. So we always seemed to be arriving at school in the middle of the year after the pecking order had already been established.
Okay.
And so there were a couple of people where I was just hounded by several individuals, and felt that life was miserable because of being bullied.
Mm.
And then I snapped, and when I snapped finally from the fear building up, it worked, and then, so that's kind of probably what got me interested in the martial arts, actually, that I wanted to be able to, I can't quite remember whether I wanted to get interested in the martial arts to make the bullies go away, or when I snapped and prevailed, I liked the idea of the feeling that gave me of, oh my goodness, wow, look what I just did and I prevailed. I want more of that. I think that might be more actually the case.
Well, can
But
you?
I was an academic kid. I was kind of a loner. I would say I was a loner. Didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't want a lot of friends. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not like I was unpopular. I was just not wanting a lot of friends. I was very happy in my own company.
yeah,
You know, going out, catching lizards and snakes and selling lizards to pet shops for $2 when you could do that. You can't do that anymore. But back in those days, that's how I made my pocket money, doing things like that. So I was always, out and about in the bush, um, you know, stuff like that, but pretty much by myself.
and you mentioned your martial arts there. Do you recall when you commenced martial arts? How old were you, and what was it, and how was it like?
Yes, I started when I'm in Australian terms in grade 10, grade
Hmm.
10. Oh, no, form 2, which is grade 8. Grade 8,
Okay.
and there was a wrestling, there was wrestling was available, like freestyle wrestling,
Mm,
Olympic wrestling,
mm.
in a little hall across like 100 meters from my house. 20 cents a
Wow.
class. And so, but my parents wouldn't pay. I had to get up and I had to get a paper run to earn my $3 a week.
Yeah.
They said, we're not paying for that. You can go and do it. Now,
Mhm.
I look back now and I understand the value of that. The value of earning your own money and the discipline it required to get up every morning and hail, rain, sleet or snow and get out there and deliver newspapers. So
Mm.
that was a really good lesson. But I paid my 20 cents and I did amateur wrestling. And I did that for about a year and a half. So my first martial art was wrestling.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's why when I got into fights, it was always double leg takedown, mount, ground and pound. It wasn't spin kick to the head.
Yeah.
And then after that, that was around there. That was in the 70s, so early 70s or whatever, or 70. So then when the Bruce Lee movies came out in the, I forget, early 70s, 72, then I went, oh, wow, that looks pretty cool. And when I went and saw one of the first Bruce Lee movies in Geelong, when
Yeah.
everyone came out of the movie, everyone started fighting. Like they were Geelong, and they were, and I went, what the hell? People throwing kicks. That was a new thing.
Yeah.
And I thought I must do that. That looks pretty fun because I was going double leg takedown,
Yeah.
bang,
Yeah.
bang.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to win, but people don't think they wanted to win. They wanted to look good,
It looked cool. Yeah.
to look cool. And I was not interested in that. So I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. So then I took up Taekwondo and Goju Kai Karate and went down that Oriental martial art path. But the wrestling was my first experience.
Oh, that's great. And so, did you have any idea when you're going through sort of school what you wanted to do when you were older?
Not, no, not through. To give you an answer that no one's ever heard, I originally, like, when people say to you when you're 10, what do you want to do when you grow up?
Mm.
The only thing that two things interested me. One was, it sounds weird now, but catching animals for zoos. I used to read all of Richard Attenborough's books
Mm.
way back. And he had that kind of life. He would go to South America. He had an order to fulfill. 2 anteaters, 1 jaguar. And I was doing. I was catching parrots and I was catching lizards and things and selling them to local pet shops and stuff.
Yeah.
So naturally, I thought, and I read every one of his books. And I thought that I would love to do that. Like, that's not a job that you can get. No one advertises for that job. So that was my first thing for a couple of years. I thought that's what I would have wanted to do.
Mm.
And then subsequent to that, I did like the idea of architecture. I like the idea of not so much architecture, but design. Thinking about it now, I like design,
Yeah.
which breaches the concept of just designing a house. So it's more than that. I like to design my life. I like to design my house. I like to design my classes,
Mm.
delivery of a seminar. I just like to design. I like organizing things in optimal ways that
Yeah.
feed your soul, for lack of a better word. So I did like that idea a bit in school. I could have gone down that road pretty easily. And nowadays there's probably design this and design that, but when I was in school, it was just architecture was the closest, you know, thing you could do. But that's all I wanted to do through school. And then I became kind of obsessed with martial arts at 16 years of age, 16. So then my teachers would say, what do you want to do? And I go, I want to be a martial artist. I want to teach people. I want to do this. And they said, you're insane. You can't make a living doing that. They literally told me you will go crazy and be poor.
Yeah.
If you continue down this path.
Well, you should have said, well, my other plan is to collect animals and sell them. So which one's crazier?
Yeah.
I did not know that about David Attenborough, and it doesn't surprise me. You know, he's a figure that the world looks up to. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me that you would think that that'd be a great career choice. But yeah, I mean, it just sounds like you had a passion for adventure, which that very much sounds like a really adventurous career, traveling the world and meeting these orders for exotic animals. I think that's really endearing.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I did, you know, leave Australian shores. You'll probably get into it later on.
Yeah.
You know, and it was an adventure, and it still is an adventure. I mean, you know, it was only 6 months ago. I'm in outer Rajasthan on a camel, you know, heading toward the Pakistani border, watching the Indians fire rockets across.
Oh my goodness!
So I love, adventure. Life's an adventure. I'm an atheist. And why I say that is because that gives me, I think that when I drop dead, that's the absolute end. I've got this one tiny, infinitesimally small opportunity to enjoy my state of consciousness while I'm alive. And I want to wring every bit out of that as I can. I'm not sacrificing this life for another one.
That's fantastic. All right, John. Well, let's get into, you know, it's quite famous, your exploits in the early 80s traveling around the world. So I believe it started going to Indonesia.
Yes.
So how did the Indonesia come on the table? What was Indonesia back then? And then how did you find yourself there?
How awkward would it be for me to get up and walk away to that bookshelf?
Not awkward at all.
Okay. All right. I've lost most of my books. I was living in Aireys Inlet in the 80s, and where there was Ash Wednesday bushfires. So I lost my very vast collection of books. I've not recently, you know, over the last 20 or 30 years, replaced a lot of them. And I've just recently found some copies of two of the books that influenced me, Asian Fighting Arts by Don Drager, and Weapons and Fighting Arts of the Indonesian Archipelago by Don Drager. For those who don't know, you would know, of course, Richie, but Don Drager was in the US Marine Corps, and he was fascinated with martial arts, and he was one of my early. I've got a number of heroes. I wrote a list the other day of my heroes, and Don Drager is definitely on that list. And he was stationed in Okinawa and studied Bujitsu, Budo, and then he traveled extensively, went through India, he went all through Indonesia, wrote this book on Indonesian martial arts. And we are talking back in a time where it's not easy to do that. You know, travel's easy. Everyone listening to this podcast go, travel, jump on a plane. Think about that in the 60s. I mean, how difficult that would have been. And he did it. And so this book, particularly this book, Weapons and Fighting Arts of the Indonesian Archipelago. I mean, what a name for a book, you know.
Yes.
And I read that book, you know, notes, and I underlined things, and it's a dog-eared book. And I said to myself, when I leave school, I just want to follow in his footsteps. That's my plan. I just want to do what he did. I mean, I'll just do that, and then I'll figure it out. Meaning what I wasn't interested in making a living. I don't know. I've never been actually that interested in making a living. I've never been, pardon me, I've just been interested in living my life. And if I have to make some money to pay some bills as a consequence of, needing to live, but I've never been interested in making a living. I just wanted to live my life.
Yeah.
I wanted to follow in his footsteps, and I kind of did. That's why I ended up going to Indonesia first, because it's right above Australia. So it was easy, right, to start in Bali and then go through Java and then train through Indonesia, train through Malaysia, Thailand, India, and go Japan. And I'll just do that. He was my biggest influence.
Wow.
Really, really good. Interesting guy.
Well, tell us about how this training in Indonesia started. Because I mean, it's, you were one of the pioneers to go and kind of do this in the 80s. I mean, it's fairly easy nowadays, but back then it still would have been strange, surely, for this white guy from Australia to rock up in Indonesia and be like, hey, I want to train with you guys.
It was. I think though, like, interesting of late, white privilege, and all of this. I mean, the people have been talking about this issue, and my thinking on that has evolved even in the past couple of weeks. I always like to allow myself the opportunity to evolve my thinking. You have a knee-jerk response to something. Oh my God, that poor cop, to be honest, in America, that's my knee-jerk, he's being persecuted. That am I talking about my first 10 seconds? Because I know how it can be hard for policemen. I know police have been killed in action. But then you stay open to more information, right? Mm-hmm. And then as you learn more and more and more, you realize, you know what, that's a good point. So anyway, I'm a bit off topic there, but going back to that, I used the fact that I was a white guy. I used the novelty of that to great effect.
Yeah, okay.
That opened up doors for me. Oh my God, what's this white guy? What's this guy from Australia doing here? And they would probably open doors. That would open doors that would not open to just another Indonesian guy.
Yeah.
And I became quite aware of that. I had novelty value. When I went to Brazil, they used to call me the gringo. I was the first one there that was not Brazilian learning BJJ. And I'm telling you, I milked it for all.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I? So that, I think I've been thinking about that this last week. You get this, there is a sort of a privilege there in a way. And that helped me. I was still a stranger in a strange land, to quote Heinlein. But and it was difficult in that communication, because the places I trained in, they couldn't speak English. Mm-hmm. But that turned out to be a benefit because it forced me to learn the language. So I learned Indonesian, speak Indonesian. But that also, to your earlier point there, Richie, that added to the adventure. Learning another language is a very interesting way to step into someone else's shoes and look out and use different sounds out of your mouth to get an idea across. So that was I look back and think, wow, that was actually really good. Absolutely. So it was an adventure. And I was used to being alone and very happy being alone. So the adventure of it was fun. It wasn't hard. There were some hard times over there. I've been through some life-threatening situations, and I've seen friends of mine killed and stuff like that. But apart from those few instances, it was all pretty much a very, a wonderful adventure. That's what it was. And I also had a good teacher. I stumbled across a great teacher who, after I'd been training for a few years, one day I turned up in Bali, turned up to training in the morning. And he gave me 6 envelopes with 6 addresses on them throughout the length and breadth of Indonesia, and said, you need to go out and train in all these different styles. Here are some letters of introduction.
Wow.
That's not a normal thing in the Western world I'm not, I haven't done it. No one's rocked up at my academy and I've gone, I think for your personality, you should train in Aikido and Goju Kai with this guy, and here's a letter of introduction. And that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so he sent me on a 6-month odyssey throughout the length and breadth, and then I came back, and then he kept teaching me. So wow, talk about a teacher who cares about his students.
Absolutely. It kind
So
of
that,
it breaks the model of what you think a martial arts school is. It's just,
yes,
but it just shows such investment in you and your
yes.
growth.
So I was lucky,
Yeah.
I'm going to use that word because people have accused me, when I talk about luck with other friends of mine who have done okay in their lives, they go, no, it's not luck. It's hard work. It's this and that. I disagree. I think a lot of things are luck. And when I say luck, I mean timing. You can appreciate that from a military point of view and so forth. Just the timing.
Yeah,
When did you
absolutely.
pull up on the beach? Was it low tide or high tide? Did you have to walk across the mud, or were you able to jump out on top of the timing? A lot of it's just the timing. And timing has been good for me. Maybe we
Yeah.
are living in a simulation.
John and
Or I
I,
am.
John and I, we've been having a lot of conspiracy theory jokes, so that's all part of it. So, John, tell us about the contrast between training in your Australian schools, in your background as a kid, and then training in an Indonesian one. Was it a big difference? Was it harder?
Asia, Asia is more, I'm going to say, more loose. That was the first apparent, obvious difference. Australia was more, because it was Goju-Kai karate or Taekwondo, or it was because it was run by there was someone out the front, a dictator of sorts, saying, this is what you do, you're all doing this, kind of like mini dictatorships, you could say.
Yeah.
Whereas in Asia, it was more like a community. Thinking about it, was a very interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I've ever said that before, but you've just forced me to think about it. That would be the biggest difference. In Australia, there were mini dictatorships, and in Asia, it was more of a community based idea. Everyone's getting together. Sure, someone's teaching us, but it was much more communal.
Yeah.
Because I was going to use the word loose, but that wasn't the right word. Because it leaves the wrong impression, because the training over there was often very hard.
Yeah.
It was a communal thing, as opposed to Australia, it was shut up and do what I'm telling you idea. So that was a big difference. And I think I liked that. And I became used to that, because my first 7 or 8 years of serious training was in Asia, not here. So I was very influenced by that.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, when I came back to Australia, well, I'm not coming back, but when I kind of ended up spending much more time here in Australia, I recoiled a little bit from the martial arts landscape, because I went, what are you people doing?
Yeah, right.
And so then I looked like I was rebelling, but I don't think it was just rebellion for the sake of it. I think it was like, this doesn't seem right to me. I prefer the other way.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. And then, you could probably do a whole PhD on, how culture affects martial arts, the same martial arts in the country of origin versus when it's exported, the difference in the teaching styles. That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
And John, did you not you went on to win a championship in Silat in Bali, did you not, during your time?
Well, it wasn't in Bali. It was in Jakarta.
Oh, excuse me.
And it was the world champion. The first, was it? Yeah. I think it was the inaugural. Yeah. It was the first World Silat Championships. For those who don't know, Silat is an umbrella term to describe the martial arts of Indonesia, the indigenous martial arts of Indonesia, of which when this book was written by Draeger in the 60s, there was something like over 360 something government recognized different styles.
Wow.
That's government recognized styles, let alone all the little villages had their own thing. So there was literally 1,000. That's what attracted Draeger. It was the diversity and richness of the martial arts the combative arts over there were so diverse and so rich. That's what fascinated him. But basically the Indonesians used the word silat as an all-encompassing term. So you could say there are styles of silat that were all about grappling. There were styles that were all about just hand trapping, like Wing Chun, and there were styles that were about kicking. There were styles that looked like Muay Thai, and there were styles that had weapons, and there were styles that combined it all, which is the style that I mainly fell in with the start. Again, luck. I just happened to pick the style that mashed it all together in an MMA kind of format.
Yeah, okay.
Luck, you know. But so that was quite interesting about the Indonesian stuff was very, very interesting because it was just so diverse. I'm sorry, I lost
And
you.
then and then the championships.
I'm sorry, thank you. Sorry, Richie. The championships were their first attempt at having a world championship.
Yeah.
So I think there was only 14 countries. Now there's more. It's quite a big deal. But there were 14 countries that came because a lot of Indonesians went, you know, especially Holland. They went to Holland and there was, I think, Holland, Belanda, they call them Dutch. So Dutch used to own a lot of parts of Indonesia and trade with them. And so Indonesia still exported all over the world. And there was 14 countries involved in this big championships in 1982. I mean, it wasn't that big. I had 5 fights. So what does that mean? Probably 20 to 30 people in my division.
Yeah. Okay. And was it like a full contact fight?
It was the same rules as you would say Kyokushin karate now. So you could kick and strike full contact, except you couldn't punch to the head full contact.
Yeah.
But you were allowed to throw or take down, and that counted as a knockdown. So if you put your partner on the floor 3 times, that you were declared the winner, which is what I did. But that was my method.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I did that, and that marked the end of my interest in Silat in 1982, and probably only because I thought, rightly or wrongly, I'll leave that up to your listeners to decide.
Yeah.
Correctly or incorrectly, I'd rather say. I had this thought that, you know, I've gone as far as I can with that. Now that's almost certainly a stupid thing to think, but that's what I thought at that time, right?
Yeah.
I thought I've climbed that mountain. I'm going to go and do another one, you know, and then another one. So that kind of marked the end of that. And then I started to go to Thailand and India and eventually Brazil and America and so forth. So.
I remember years ago reading about your adventures overseas, and you know the Japan I get, the Thailand I absolutely get. That's very popular. You know, I want to do that one day. But the India one continues to fascinate me till today. How did you discover that there was an opportunity to do this in India? Again, through the book. There you go.
Let me refer to my notes. India and that picture.
Wow. Okay.
That picture, Richie. I looked at that and thought, I've been in that situation.
Yep.
That's a guard.
Yes. Yes, it is. There you go.
And I didn't know it at the time, of course, because of my exposure to that was prior to me learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
That photo. Now, you can't tell, but if you look very, very carefully, that's an omoplata. He has got him in an omoplata. He's sitting up. That his left hand up in the air is donning a knuckle duster. So it's an omoplata with a knuckle duster. Now, if that doesn't make you interested, you're on the wrong podcast.
Absolutely. Look, listeners, if you want to see that picture, check out the YouTube. That is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
That's good. Stand by. I'll go to my...
Get pleased. Get something else.
That is a rare book. There's only 100 copies in the entire world.
Can you read the title, John? What does that say?
The title there is the Mala Purana.
Mala Purana.
Purana is Indian Sanskrit for old, ancient. Mala means fighter. So ancient fighting, let's say. The first third of the book is in English and the rest is in Sanskrit. I got this in India, but again, there's some photos of them. That's the photo.
Yep. That they did that from the first book, yeah, the guard photo.
Yeah, so Drager had this book.
Yeah, and he sketched that out.
Yes, he did. And then they're fighting, and you wear a knuckle duster on one hand, and it's MMA.
Wow.
I won't tell you how I got. People would think less of me if they don't think that way now. But so it wasn't that book because I got that in India, but it was Drager. So Drager was the one that, again, I'm on my journey following Drager, and I was doing some wrestling in northern India, and then I went to the state reference library, found a book, and headed and using that book as the only clue that I had, meaning the town that book was published in, which was a town called Baroda in Hyderabad. And I headed down to Baroda, and I went to, the only hint I had was this book was published in Baroda 60 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the hint. And I went down there, and I just thought, well, I'll go to a Krishna temple, because that's an ancient Hindu, and I'll find someone, and I'll just ask him about this. Some old priest. They usually know what's going on. I found a university student. I went to the University of Baroda, asked about the book. They're clueless. 60 years ago, no one knows. I got a student. I gave him $20 or something. Said, "Can you be my guide for a few days and translate? They speak English." He was stoked. I said, "Take me to the oldest temple in town." And now when I say in town, there's 5 million people in that town.
Yep.
So he took me to the oldest standing Krishna temple in town, found some old priest that I knew is 70 years old. So he at least would have been alive when these guys were alive. And I said, "Do you know," I showed him the book.
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you know," and I don't know what he said. He didn't look happy, pointed over there. And I thought, he's saying, go and ask over the road. Don't bother us. Went over the road, Richie, knocked on the door, and guess who opened the door? That guy.
But no, what? The guy? No, the guy from the photo?
That guy.
Oh my God.
I'm living in a simulation. He opened the door. I didn't register for a moment because he's now 40 years older.
Yeah.
But he's looked at the book and gone like that. And then I've gone, oh shit. And we both gone like that. And I spent, I don't know, I forget, 7 or 8 days with him.
Wow.
He was in his late 70s. Big man, 6 foot something, heavy.
Yeah.
Probably like your build, heavy set, muscular, athletic, scarred.
Yeah.
Wow. I was very impressed. I mean, impressive man. In his youth, he would have been a ferocious monster.
Yeah.
And the art's dead. The art is now finished. No one wants to do that shit anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Studying commons. So that anyway. I went a bit off the rails there, but that was the kind of experiences that I had over there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Experience.
That's crazy. And to counter your point about not believing in luck, I don't know. That story is like the personification of luck. That's incredible.
Well, if you had have asked me, if your question had been, give me an example of how you've been lucky, that would have been. That's my top. That's my best one.
yeah, it's hard to top. It's hard to top. Look, for those, including me that aren't familiar, and I just remember seeing these photos of you in this red dirt doing this wrestling training. Describe this martial arts and what it was like training in India, going through this process.
Well, I related to it, right, because I'd done some wrestling as a kid.
Yeah.
They train. The normal thing over in India is, first of all, most people who trained wrestling, when I was there at least, were people of the lower, working class, lower class, taxi drivers, farmers. So necessarily they'd be training at 5 a.m. in the morning when it was still dark, like just before dawn till maybe at the latest 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because of two things. One, the heat of the day, but more practically so that they can go to work. And then same thing in the evening. So it was just around dawn and just after sunset. So we trained twice a day,
Mm-hmm.
which suited me, right? Because you could do that. I could do all the training and then still have a day to be fascinated by, just going and visiting all the amazing places and seeing India. But it was like, it was good. It was raw. They're very good. There's some world-class wrestlers come out of the wrestling pits in India. Like when I say world-class, Olympic medalists.
Yeah.
But they've got a culture. The culture of wrestling in India goes back a long, long way. Like it did in Iran. Middle East.
Yeah.
Is where Iraq, Iran. Their national thing is wrestling. I mean, they've been at that game for thousands of years. And then it came down from the Middle East through the Silk Road, came down and influenced the top part of America, the top part of India.
Yep.
India is like a V shape. So the top part of India, which is below the Middle East, that was influenced
into the wrestling. Right. Okay.
All by, the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I'm going to say, where wrestling come from. People living in Northern Africa might have something to say about that, but I'm going to say it was developed there. And whereas the southern part of India, the bottom 2/3, it's all different. That was influenced, that was created in the Hindu culture. So that's all very much like Silat. And that's where most people think Silat from Indonesia came from, because there was a connection through Hindu coming down the Malay Peninsula into Indonesia and trading in the religion. That's where the Silat came from. So you can see in Indonesia and the southern part of India, you can see the systems are very similar. Weaponry and all the forms and all that stuff. They're very similar. But the northern India is all wrestling. Wrestling based. So the wrestling was great. They're very simple. We just have a pit full of dirt, which doesn't cost any money, right? And and the dirt was our mat, but it was very cool. But metaphorically and literally cool, because the dirt would be like a foot deep. And part of the thing that you and I would do, so you and I would rock up to train, and the first thing we'd have to do is hoe that pit up with a giant hoe.
Yeah.
So there's your workout. That hoe it was heavy, big metal thing like this. So I'd do half of it, then you'd do half of it. Then there'd be a railway sleeper with rope on it. You'd squat on it and I'd tow it around to flatten it all out. And then we'd wrestle for 10 minutes or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then swap, and then someone else would do it. So it was, how in Thailand, there's a bunch of people kicking bags and doing all these things. And then someone jumps up into the ring with the trainer and he has his 5 minutes, and then he goes out, someone else comes in. That's the way it works a lot.
Yeah.
In India, it was much the same. So everyone's around in the yard doing arm drags and doing push-ups and climbing ropes and doing calisthenics and stuff. And then two guys like you and me are in the pit for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, and then we cycle out and someone else comes in. And so it was cool. So the dirt is being hoed, and every day, maybe 10, 15, 20 times a day. So it was very awesome to wrestle in it. It was like your feet sink into this beautiful loam that, it's great.
Yeah, that sounds so surreal. And there's something visceral about thinking about wrestling someone in a pit, just a pit with dirt, It's a cool experience.
But it's cool. That's the precursor to mats. Now we've all got mats, but they didn't have mats. They had that. And I'm telling you, if you want to get suplexed, you'd rather get suplexed in the dirt than the mat. If it's all, they're 10 magic secret spices and oils, and they used to put this, Ayurvedic elements in there to make it all, nice. So it wouldn't stick to you or anything. You could come out of that and there's no dirt stuck on you. It's all just kind of so soft and loose. But it's very comfortable. So it looks harder than what it is. It's actually harder on a normal modern day tatami. Is much more hardcore.
And like you described with Salat, where you kind of reached what you thought was your pinnacle at the time, and then time to move on. Did you ever reach that same heights in India with the wrestling?
No,
No.
no, no, no,
Okay.
no. Nowhere near.
Yeah.
No, I was the bottom of the pile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was athletic. I had some things going in my favor. I was athletic, very fit. I would say exceptionally fit, athletic, had a brain for it, but you can't beat experience.
Yeah. Okay.
So no, I was pretty lame. I could every now and again do something cool, but mostly they were great. They embraced the gringo.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was milking my white privilege, I guess.
I don't know. I don't think I'll ever be able to get rid of the image of an omoplata with your left hand holding the person and then your right hand has a set of knuckle dusters on it. That to me.
Well, just to be clear, that's a completely different art than the one I'm talking about now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right. What I'm talking about is wrestling in Northern India, which everyone's familiar with. It's like American wrestling in high school.
Yeah.
My son has just come over there. That art down south, which is down south, is wrestling, but with striking and kicking and elbows and knees. It's MMA.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's a very different thing. Obviously they had elements of wrestling, but they're punching each other with knuckle dusters.
It's crazy.
So
it's crazy.
That's not what I was talking about earlier on. That was completely different. Hence it died out. People don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And for good reason. But they had that family, to go back to these guys, they're known as Jesse. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. Jesse Mullah, something like that. Jesse Mullah.
Okay.
Which means fighter who cannot lose.
Wow.
So there's your family name. That's your surname.
Yeah.
Right. And you're born into that family. Right. It's like nowadays having the name Gracie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if you're not into it, you're going to have to get into it. That was the case with them. And we're talking about a time when you didn't have choice back then as to how you can make a living. You made a living based on what caste, what family you were born in.
Yeah.
And their family now I'm probably wrong with this, but I think it's about 11 or 1200 years. So 11 or 12 centuries, a long time. That's what their family did. The Jesse Mullah family were bodyguards. That's their profession, was bodyguard. So India was made up of a whole lot of little kingdoms and principalities.
Yeah.
And so the princes, or sons of princes, or you can imagine there's thousands and thousands of these people. They would use this family. They would get two of these guys as their bodyguards. That was their family profession. Like if you're a Spartan, that was your family profession. The Jesse Mullah family profession was the males did bodyguarding, the females did healing and bone setting.
Wow. There's not much outside of that.
So you think, if you just think on that for a minute, compare it to, say, Sparta.
Yeah.
There's a movie here for someone one day.
Absolutely.
And if you think about the emerging middle class of India and how many billions of people there are in India, 1.4 billion or whatever it is, I don't know. Someone should do that movie.
Yeah.
because if they did that movie, you would get 1 billion people watching it.
Yeah.
And you and I, 1 billion and two.
Yeah.
But that is their Sparta. That they could make a movie, and that family is. I've not come across anything like that ever. Like a family that had a history of 1,200 years unbroken of training to be bodyguards. That's crazy. So that's why I was fascinated in that.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
a depth to the story.
Yeah. Well, if there's any budding producers or scriptwriters out there you go. Don't forget to credit John Will for your next blockbuster.
Yeah.
So John, where does the journey go to get you to Brazil and to your start of your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu journey?
Okay, so all this time I'm scrounging a living. I don't know how. Teaching a bit here and there, and I'm back in Australia. I'm in Australia. There was the only martial art magazine back at that time was a martial art magazine called Australasian Fighting Arts.
Okay.
And I wrote an article on mixed martial arts. You would say nowadays mixed martial arts. Back at that time, no one wants to know about that. So I wrote this little article about the value of cross training. Let's say.
Yeah.
I didn't use the term mixed martial arts; it didn't exist. But you need to cross train. And a couple of well-known guys in the martial art community wrote back a scathing reply saying, "You can't mix your martial arts. You heretic. Besides, what the hell would you know? We've never heard of you. You're just a kid that doesn't know anything." I was not happy about that. So I wrote back a hard reply, which they refused to publish because those guys were a friend of the current editor. I called him up. I said, "Hey, these guys say all these things about me. I can refute every point.
Mm-hmm.
Let me publish." He goes, "No way. They're my friends." He still told me straight out, "They're my friends. I'm not doing this." That made me upset.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I dealt with that is I went down to the local print house and said, "How much to make a magazine like this? How much to make 10,000 of them?" They said, and I think these numbers are about right, they said, "That's going to be $10,000. I came home stewing and I thought, if I can sell $10,000 worth of ads, I'm going to at least do one issue and smash these guys.
Spite.
Pure spite.
Yeah.
So I got in my bomb of a car, drove around Melbourne, drove up to Sydney, drove around Sydney, went to all the martial arts shops, the bigger schools, and said, "Listen, I'm going to put together this magazine, a new magazine. If I do it, will you buy a half-page ad for $200? Whatever, I don't know." Lo and behold, in 2 or 3 weeks, I got enough pledges that if I did it and it worked, I got my $10,000. I'm doing it. I got out my Commodore 64 and I wrote every article in it.
Wow.
I had plenty of photos, and I literally pasted and glued together a magazine. Then I took it down to the printer and they printed up 10,000 copies. I gave that to the biggest distributor in Australia at that time was called Gordon and Gotch. And their deal was they put it in all the newsagents all over Australia. You sold it for $4. They took $2 and gave you $2 back. But the magazine only cost me $1. And I sold 11,000 issues, first issue.
Wow.
And now my goal is now I've got some momentum. I want to kill this other magazine. That's all I want to do.
It's like you got your takedown done and now you're like, I'm going in.
Done. I want choke out, stomp, stomp. So, and that took me precisely 8 issues.
Wow.
And then the day the other magazine folded, I lost interest completely and I gave the magazine away.
Oh, what a great story. That is so cool.
Look, it makes people think less of me, but what do I care?
Yeah.
I was driven. That was it. That's the why. That's how Blitz started, and that's why it ended. Not why it ended. I gave it to someone else who then Silvio Morelli took it, ran with it for a long time, made something out of it, and now it's all disappeared. It's all gone. Print publications out. Technology's moved on, and people aren't buying magazines. But that's how that was why Blitz started. Anyway, now to answer your question. Is the second or third issue of that. I'm out there looking for stories, looking for local stories, as well as all my overseas. I've got plenty of things to talk about, but hey, babe, sorry.
That's all right.
This is my wifey.
Long or short?
Too long. Thanks. Too long. Yeah, little espressos. Sorry about that. So I'm looking for stories. And
Yep.
during that time, there was a Brazilian who came out to Australia, a guy called Marcelo Bailey. He was just coming out for surfing at Bells Beach.
Yeah. Okay.
And I forget where I got the story from, but he put out a challenge, $50,000 for anyone who'll fight him, no rules. Now, come on, $50,000 in 1985.
That's crazy.
$50,000 now, who's got it? Have you got it in your back pocket? Let alone in 1985. So, of course, no one took him up on it. And then he went 25, 20, 10, 5. Will anyone fight me? And so I put that in an article, thinking everyone was going to jump up. Someone was going to jump up. There has to be some tough guys in this country. No one stepped up. Now I'm curious. So I ended up making the call to America. And I asked someone over there, have you heard of these guys? Like, they're from Brazil. I don't know what their fighting's like. I was clueless because there's no video, there's no internet, there's no YouTube, there's none of that. I just heard this guy. I'm thinking it's capoeira, the indigenous martial art of South America or Brazil, one of the main martial arts in Brazil. I'm thinking it's capoeira. I know I must have fight a capoeira guy. What the hell? And someone over in America said, yeah, there's these two guys out in the shed out in Torrance, which turned out to be Holly and Gracie. And that wasn't enough, but it was the I guess the icing on the cake. And I thought, look, that's a good enough excuse. I'll go to America. I can go to the Jet Center. I can do some kickboxing. I can check out Gene LaBelle and do some wrestling, and then I can go and check out these guys. It was just like another thing to do. Now I've got enough things to do. So I went over to America and did all that. Did some training at the Jet Center and trained here and there at different places. And then I went out to this little shed out there where I just got tied into a knot and choked. And I went, what the hell is that? And this story is boring for most people because I've told it so many times, but I did 5 private lessons with Holly and Gracie, and it was $100 a lesson. So it was all the money that I had in the world. Thanks, babe. It was all the money that I had in the world, less $100. I think I borrowed the last 100 from some friends because he wanted $500, which is outrageous. I couldn't believe how expensive that was.
Yeah.
So I went out there and I did an interview with him, which I published in Blitz magazine, thinking that surely, he could reciprocate and teach me. No way. So he wanted his money.
Yeah.
So I coughed it up and I did the lessons. And the last lesson on Friday was Rigan Machado, who at that time was national champion in Brazil, but he was up there helping his cousin out because he was teaching 40 private lessons a week in his garage. And he got Rigan to do it for like $5 an hour. So he paid Rigan $5, pocket $95. Rigan took me. He hasn't got a word of English.
Yeah.
But my 5th lesson was with Rigan. And he taught me the best lesson of that week with no English.
Wow.
And that's what hooked me. And I got into BJJ.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you had this lesson with Rigan Machado, and then do your eyes open up because you got such this vast martial arts experience? Is it all now honed in? You're like, I'm going to do this. I'm committing to this BJJ thing. No. At
that time, it's hard to tell, Richie. Like if you go on the mat with a world-class judoka or a world-class boxer or world-class anything, you go in there with the mindset, of course,
they're going to be.
Of course, he's going to hit me at will, throw me at will, beat me at ping pong at will. You're not expecting anything other than that. Yeah. So I get smashed on the mat. Okay, I went, wow, that's awesome. I need some of that, but there's no way I'm thinking I'm going to commit to boxing to the point where I can get to where, or I'm going to commit to take. No, it's too big a commitment, and I'm too old. I'm 30 years old. I needed to have started when I was 6.
Yeah.
So I'm not thinking like that, right? You can imagine like that. So I'm just. Of course, I'm in awe while they're great, but I'm not thinking that I'm going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's it requires a lifetime of study. But I'm hooked enough to keep dabbling.
Okay.
So then when I've come back to Australia with those 5 lessons, Now I'm seeking out judo black belts and Japanese jiu-jitsu black belts and saying, hey, let's wrestle.
Huh.
I'm beating them all with what I learned in 5 lessons.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
Full guard, cross choke. And I'm thinking, I should do 10 lessons. So to be accurate,
Yeah.
what hooked me was how well I did on the
Yeah.
battlefield, knowing so little.
Yes.
So I'd literally done 5 hours of training and I was beating people with 15 years of experience. Now, if that doesn't hook you, I thought I've found the magic school.
Yeah.
This is the magic that people have been talking about in martial arts. You do 5 lessons, you're a killing machine. I found it.
Yeah.
It's like the holy grail in a way, right?
Yeah.
So I went back there after 6 months. I've turned up there to do more lessons. Higan Machado's there again. He takes my lesson. This time he's learned some English by this time. He leans over, he says, don't train here. This is no good. You got to come to Brazil. I said, well, I want to because I can't afford to train here.
Yeah.
I can afford about 1 lesson. He says, I'm going Wednesday. Come with me. I can't because it takes a week and 2 weeks to get a plane ticket. So I said, I'll come. So I waited till the first plane ticket out and I rock up in Brazil. I land at the airport. Coming through the airport is Higan Machado, Renzo Gracie, I think, Kilian Gracie, Carlos Machado in their gis at the airport to pick me up.
Wow.
And that is the beginning of my story. Now I'm with them, not knowing who they are,
Yeah.
clueless as to who these people are. It's like taking your first, class in philosophy of, it's of Nietzsche or something.
Yeah. They all rock up.
I just thinking these are the local lads. But
Yeah,
no, they're
yeah.
not. And it was years before I found out who they were. And so I began my journey with the best guys in Brazil. Again, luck.
Absolutely.
Not entirely, a lot of luck, but also I was a nice person. I mean, so when after Higan had taught me that first time I met him, I gave him some gifts. I gave him a little boomerang and a hat. You just be a nice human being, right?
Make yourself endearing. Yeah.
You make because you appreciate what they do. So you just do little things like that. Now, so the second time I meet him, he remembers me. He knows who I am and he instantly likes me. So it's not just luck. It's how you conduct yourself in the world as a man. And that opens the doors. And so, and now I'm in the midst of the gods in Brazil on a mat with, Renzo Gracie's a purple belt.
Wow.
And Half is a blue belt.
Yeah.
And all these guys and me. So pretty cool.
Absolutely. And so you obviously weren't sort of aware how profound that situation was to be in at the time. Talk us through, like, is it a big gym? What's the difference from training back then to what we would see nowadays?
It's probably about as big as, not as big as my lounge room. So, it's about that big.
About that big. Yep.
It's
size lounge room.
Yeah. My lounge room is probably double the average size, but it's a mat of probably 8 meters by 80 square, 90, not 100 square meters.
Okay.
And it was called Gracie Barra, who most people have heard of now. Now it's a franchise, but this was prior to that. So this was the original Gracie Barra, which was owned by 4 people. Higan Machado, Carlos Machado, Carlos Gracie Jr., their cousin, and a girl, Daniela Dutra, who was a girl over there who without whose help the thing wouldn't work. You always need some smart girl who's way smarter than us to do all the admin and all the shit that we are incapable of doing. So There were the 4 part owners of this gym.
Okay.
And it's called Gracie Barra because Barra was the suburb, the beach suburb where this gym was. But nowadays, the people that were training there, Soccer, Soneca, Half Gracie, Henzo Gracie, all the Machado brothers, Helion Gracie, these are well-known people, and they all came out of that gym. They were all just the normal guys in the gym.
And these sort of gods of the BJJ world that sort of came out of this one place. Do you think it's representative of how much it's grown because of the practicality of the martial arts, or was there something special about this gym that produced these people?
I think, look, there was. I mean, they were all awesomely amazing. They were incredible. They cross-trained. There's a number of elements, Richie. This is what I think. Mm-hmm. Other people may disagree with this, and they would be incorrect. But the fact that say you've got 5 brothers and you're all into it, that helps.
Yeah.
Right. That helps. You're alone. I'm alone. You've got 5 brothers. Anytime you feel like training, there's one of them will go, yeah, I'll do that right now. So that helps when you've got 5 brothers who are all into something, whether it's Gracie brothers or Machado brothers or whatever. It helps if there's a bunch of you. Why are the 2 Meow brothers so good? Because they're always within 4 foot of each other. And at any given time, there's a training partner. Mm-hmm. That's got to help. Mm-hmm. So you do that, you get several sets of those brothers and jam them into one mat. Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? Plus, they were natively intelligent. Their native intelligence was there. They're not stupid. Mm-hmm. I mean, Carlos Machado's got an eidetic memory. He can read that book.
He knows it.
He knows it. I can't. He got a law degree. He sat for a law degree for Hegan. Hegan's got a law degree too, but never went to school. So he just took Hegan's ID and sat the exam. So, I only say that because Hegan's not practicing law. So
yeah, that's fine.
But these people, they're smart. So they're smart. There's a whole stack of them. They're also emotionally connected to it because their uncles, Helio Gracie and Carlos Gracie Sr., are the patriarchs of this whole thing. So
yeah,
that's special. You know, you've got to man up, right?
Yeah.
So it's all of those factors. Now, as to the second part of the sentence that you had, which is to why it spread. Okay, so let's call that the seed. Mm-hmm. That seed happened to be thrown into the soil at the exact time where the internet came into being.
Right.
So there's this new thing that no one knows. It's thrown up on the stage being UFC 1 in 1992, mm-hmm. at about the same time the internet started to happen. And that is a perfect alignment. What's the word I'm looking for? You know,
just a perfect alignment of things that yes. Just absolutely.
And a perfect storm, timing. And look, who knows? Now, I can argue why it wouldn't happen, but you could almost make an argument for if no one knew about Taekwondo, and then the first UFC had a Taekwondo guy in it who kicked everyone in the head and they fell down, and then the internet happened at that time. Mm. Now, Taekwondo's done pretty well without that, but I'm saying that's why I think a pretty gnarly martial art, meaning it's not, there's a lot about this martial art that doesn't help it growing because it's hard. You're going to lose. You're going to tap. It's ego destroying. So there's a lot about it. You can't pretend. You can't imagine. Your magical invisible friend is not going to help you. So there's a lot about it that's difficult. But despite that, it did well because of all those factors. Yeah, and continues to grow like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, your point about the internet being there, I think it's quite profound because I mean, you yourself spoke about watching a Bruce Lee movie. You know, how much did Bruce Lee grow the martial arts? You know,
Right.
Karate Kid with karate just exploded when that movie came out. So, you know, the seed doesn't create it, but if it's already got momentum, it's just going to blossom from there. So that's a really, really interesting point about BJJ.
And a lot of another little side element is a lot of people into the YouTube, there are a lot of smart people
Yeah,
that get into BJJ, which
yeah,
was quite different. Now I'm not saying there's no smart people in Taekwondo or kickboxing or boxing, but BJJ attracted and more than its fair share of people who are professional people,
yeah,
which I think helps.
yeah,
Because if you're an engineer or an architect or end of it, you're a professional person. You're not just a factory worker. No, not dissing factory workers, of course, but you know what I'm saying.
hmm
And now you've got a tendril into a sphere of society that normally wouldn't be thinking about fighting.
yeah.
Right, that engineer is speaking at the barbecue at his house about all this. Oh yeah, really great. It gives me all this. It gives me all that. People are going to go, oh really? Cool, wow. And that's not a subject that normally, would be talked about in, I'm going to say, academic professional circles. I don't want to get all elitist and weird, but you know my point.
Yeah. No, it does attract, like everything, it attracts a wide range of people. But because of because of the milestones that you spoke about, the obstacles that it takes to excel in BJJ, it takes a certain person that sticks around to it and gets to a certain level. And I'm obviously very biased because I'm from within the community, but no, I definitely understand what you're saying there.
So I guess in a way you could say there was almost a larger market for BJJ than there was for boxing or kickboxing.
Yeah.
Right. Not. I love boxing and kickboxing, but they're appealing to that many people. BJJ appeals to that many people. So I'm just saying that's another factor.
Yeah.
That helped it explode.
It expand. Well, John, in a time where there's, as you said, I mean, it's such a huge sport with just thousands of gyms all around the world. One of the bits of controversies you always run on the internet is the belting system and the grading system, and what does a blue belt look like? What does a purple belt look like, et cetera, et cetera. Can you talk us through your own personal journey in, from one of the originals that went through this belting system? What did you have to do to get your blue belt? Was there ceremonies? Was there a test? All that sorts of stuff.
Okay. I'm only speaking right now to my journey. I'm going to be literal with how I answer your question. Now, what is it? What should it mean? What's the template for it? That's a different question. So I'm going to talk about my own experience. I was a white belt, for quite a number of years. My first rank, this is going to
tear it all apart. Here we go.
This is my first rank was purple belt.
Oh no. Okay.
I skipped blue. Now, what I'd like everyone to understand, this is nothing to do with my ability, because I never considered myself to be like good at BJJ. I wasn't better than anyone else. I didn't have any natural ability. I started very late in life. I appreciated it perhaps more than most because of where I'd come from, but I wasn't good. There was always some person that could time in and not. But and I skipped blue belt only because I wasn't living there. I was living out in Australia. So I'd made I jumped past blue belt.
Yeah. Okay.
If there's such a level, I jumped past that at a time where I wasn't there, in my own training back here. So I went from good white belt, to maybe nearly ready for blue belt. And what that should mean is a good knowledge of the foundations, meaning you've got some knowledge everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, there's no giant surprise. You don't need to be on the mat. You've got something to do on the bottom, something to do on top, some ways to pass the guard, some ways to take someone down.
Yeah.
So you've got a well-rounded, an overview. And I passed that point when I wasn't there. So
Yep.
the next time they saw me, I was near a purple belt. I don't think I was a purple belt when they
Mhm.
gave it to me.
Mhm.
Like, I wouldn't have probably given myself a purple belt, but they said to me, "You're going to fight this guy who's a purple belt. Wrestle him now. If you beat him, you're a purple belt." I thought they were joking. So I beat him, and now I'm a purple belt. I thought, no. And I fought against it. I said, "No, please don't do that. Like, you can take your belt back. I don't want that. That's ridiculous."
Yeah.
I just beat him. If we fought 5 times, he might beat me 3. I don't know, but I don't want it. No. You're a purple belt. So they made me take it. And the one thing I can say is I very quickly scrambled to
Yeah. There you go.
yeah. I very quickly scrambled to feel more deserved of that rank.
Okay.
Because there's something in that.
Yeah.
There's something in that. Now I'm not saying this is how it should work, right? But there's something is if you get a rank in the army, or you get this promotion at work, or and you're not ready for it, the right kind of person will get ready for it. They'll start acting the way a captain acts. So they'll start because shit, you've put this on me. I'll rise to the occasion. And I think there was a bit of that in me. So the year after I got my purple belt, I think I became a purple belt.
I think that's one of the profound things about jiu-jitsu. You think of traditional martial arts, you get your orange belt and you're like, that's right. I've proven that I can pass the test for orange belt, so I get to wear the belt. But BJJ, it's almost the opposite. It's what you're describing. You wear a purple belt and you're like, oh shit, I got to prove I'm wearing this belt now. Here we go. Because you can't hide. As you said, there's no hiding. There's no illusions. You are in the pit, so to speak. So that makes, that is very familiar to have to live up to that belt you're wearing. What is not familiar is having to do it in amongst of BJJ gods in the gym that you were at that time. That would have been difficult. And then how long and what was the journey then to continue progression?
Well, I kept going back. Now, by this time, the Machados had come to America.
Okay.
Right, they'd all emigrated, got their green cards, and have arrived in America through the help of Chuck Norris.
Yes.
To help them get their green card. So they've all arrived in there. And so they're the first bunch, apart from Jorge and Gracie, who had always been in America, kind of. So they were the first bunch to come out of Brazil and land in Los Angeles and started a school. So they're all in Los Angeles and they've got a school there. And so it's much easier for me to go to LA, and much better. I mean, LA, you've got all you can eat buffets for $5.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any money. You got to remember, I'm still penniless. Not penniless, but I didn't have any money really. So now it's much easier for me to live in that environment than in Brazil. And plus, there's other things to do. There's stuff to do. I could go to the movies in the daytime. I can go to Disneyland, and I can do funny little touristy things that you kind of want to do, right? When you first go to America, go hiking in the Sierra Nevadas. So I did a lot of other things, but so they're there, and I'm now training there, and then I went from purple belt to brown belt, and I was helping them teach the beginner classes and stuff like that. In their academy, sometimes they couldn't get up there because the 405 is the biggest freeway in America, going from down San Diego right up, and their academy was in Los Angeles, the northern part, in what's called the Valley. And you had to go over the Mulholland Hills or whatever the hills are there, Beverly Hills, I guess. And they live down in Redondo Beach, down south, near Torrance. So it's an hour drive on a good day. So every now and again, that 405 would get gridlocked, packed up, and I'd get the call and I'd take the class. So I became kind of, helped them out. So I never had to pay for any training or anything like that. They were my friends. They just my friends, So that's how I met David Meyer, who you might have heard of. And he came in, I gave him his first class, for example. I was a purple belt teaching, gave him his first class. And a lot of other people that are now well known. Cesar Gracie came in there, and he was training. So I just kind of slowly, then I became a brown belt, which again, I said to them, please I don't do that. Just give me another 2 years. I fought against every belt. I did not want any of those belts because I never saw myself as worthy of it.
Yeah.
Probably because I looked around and I looked at, well, I know a brown belt down in Brazil who could, I'm not in the same category. Like, don't do that to me, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was really against receiving every rank that I got.
Yeah.
And then that took me through to 1997, the early part of 1997, where one day I turned up at training and then they gave me a black belt, my black belt, which was Hegan's own black belt. So he took off his own black belt.
Wow.
Tied it around my waist.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
I thought, no, you can't do what? There's so much wrong with this situation. Like, please do not do that. And four of the 5 Machados were there, and other brown belts and black belts. David Meyer, Bob Bass. Even though I taught David Meyer his first lesson, he passed me in rank because I was back here in Australia. So he passed me in rank just because I wasn't there the day they were giving out those two brown belts. Yeah. So there were people there that were very happy for me to get my black belt because I taught them their first lesson. It was kind of special, you know. Yeah. And so I got my black belt in the early part of 1997. There were already black belts like David Meyer, Bob Bass, Chris Howder, Rick Minter, Rick Williams. They're just 5 I can reel off the top of my head. They were all black belts of the, dirty dozen. So they were all there, and I got that. Got my belt.
It's a great story. And you said it was that kind of same feeling, or was it different with the black belts?
No, it was worse. It was worse. God, I probably in the core of me am a kind of person that never thinks he's good enough. I've got no problem with self-esteem, but probably deep inside of me, there's something that says, it's not good enough. I can do better. It's not good enough. I can do better with everything. And I think I can't do better with the wifey thing. To be clear.
Can't do better than perfect, John. You can't do better than perfect. Okay.
I can't do better than perfect. So that's probably something that's not bad because it gives you impetus to, keep going. So there's probably a little bit, it's not enough to be like, some people can experience that, I guess, viscerally to the point where they really are down and out and they don't try. But I've got just enough of that to not be satisfied, let's say. And that's what you want, I think. Because if you're all Buddhist and, you're like that and you're totally accepting of everything and you're satisfied with everything, that's a beautiful philosophy in certain situations where you have no way out.
Yeah.
But it's not good if you want to get something done, right? So I think that's always been with me, and I felt that probably more and more with every rank because I felt more pressure. But having said that, it's been good in a way because I get my black belt. Now I'm really motivated.
Yeah.
To learn more about everything, and luckily I had a great coach in Hegan who actually, and the words he said to me that day, he said to me, "I'll see you Monday morning. We're starting afresh. We're starting again at 0, because he made me go away. He made me write a list of all the techniques that I thought a black belt had to know. Think about that. Like, I forget, Richie, it might have been 150 or 200 techniques. Like, and then being me, I put them in an order, like a little bit like that.
Yep.
I put them in an order and designed them in some kind of format, like what would be first and why, what would be second, and why would that thing that's second not be first, and so I put a bit of time in. I came up with a rough order. I turned up on Monday and we started working through it as if I'd never seen it before.
Wow.
So now I'm not only learning that same thing I learned as a white belt and a blue belt, but I'm learning it with a black belt brain. As bad as that black belt brain might have been, not like a world-class one or anything like that, or anything like it, but I had enough. Now I don't see it the same way.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it like a black belt, not like a white belt.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously I'm seeing nuance and detail and appreciating the nuance and detail in a different way. And Hagen was very strict with that. So for the next 6 or 8 years, we stuck on that program and worked our way through the list, which was like the best thing a coach could have done.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it suited me to start again. That suited my psyche. Oh, start again? Perfect. I need to.
And this, I'm struck by your black belt was the black belt that Hagen pulled off his waist and gave to you. It seems like from listening to you speak in the past, this is a lifelong friendship that is just unbelievably strong that continues to this day.
Mm.
Is he like almost like, your Brazilian brother to you now? Is he still a coach, a mentor, a friend?
A lot of people say my brother, I'm going to throw this stuff around, but he's part of our family.
Yeah.
And you ask him and he'll tell you that, this year, in the year of coronavirus and the year where our borders are shut, we have a competition every year, The Gathering.
Yes.
And it's every September, and he's always come over. I've always brought him over, and then he comes to The Gathering. He does a couple of seminars, but then we have a holiday, which no one sees. Last year we went to India together.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I remember seeing that on your Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, him on a camel,
Yes, that's the very picture. Yeah.
So I always want to do that. And this year I've had to cancel The Gathering
Mm-hmm.
for the first time ever because I can't be sure that we'll all be back up and running
Mm-hmm.
with enough momentum to make it viable. So I've made the decision to cancel it, but he's not canceling it. If he can fly in,
Yeah.
he's coming over just because he wants to be on this couch
Yeah.
and hang out for 10 days.
Yeah.
And John, where are we going? What are we doing? So it's like, it's really like that. It's he's a brother of mine.
Yeah.
And we both bring different things to the table. He is my coach.
Yep.
But he comes to the mat with me with his notepad, waiting for my ideas as well. So I can at last bring some small thing to the table. I know enough now to be able to come up with ideas that are of interest to him.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm giving some small, it's not just a one-way relationship, can go back. I'll always defer to him, but we have that relationship. And in terms of life and how to live it, he defers to me. So as his older, smarter brother.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's the kind of, because what you want in any kind of relationship, a marriage or a relationship like that or whatever, what you want is you don't want two people with the same skill set.
Yeah, absolutely.
What use is that? You want to come to the table with stuff that I can't provide, and I want to come to the table with something that you can't provide, and between the two of us, there's something that's bigger than both of us, and that's the way I think that's one of the foundational elements required to build a really strong relationship. That each party brings something that the other party needs.
Yeah.
Marriage or anything like that, right? And I think we have that.
And John, as we're sort of getting to the end of this, and I've had this amazing experience to listen, and we've only scratched the surface of what you've done up to this point in time. How does that all culminate in what someone would see at Redback Academy? Your background, all your diversity with regards to your martial arts, your philosophies, your training overseas. How has that made you as the head coach at Redcat?
My academy is obviously a reflection of an extension of my house and myself.
Yeah.
So I make my living. I have my own self-managed super fund, and I'm retired. Technically, I don't need to make a living anymore. I'm financially independent, and I don't ever need to do anything for a couple of lifetimes. So I don't care about that. So that's not so when I say I make my living, that is one of my sources of income, but I don't need. But I'm there, I'm there. So I'm there for the right reason.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not there for the reason to make a living, which I'm not saying that's wrong, but a better reason to be there is because you no longer need that, but you're still there. Now that says something.
Yeah.
So I'm there because I want to, obviously the lowest level is I want to share the art that's given so much to me, and the art that I've used as a vehicle for self-exploration, for personal development and all that. I want to share that with other people.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason, so my classes are very much like that. I'm given half a chance, I will find a way to connect something we're doing on the mat with how they can actually utilize that way of thinking or in their life off the mat to improve their lives. So you'll see that at my school. That becomes very evident. And I'm doing that, I would say, 9 out of 10 classes, I'll tie it into how to leverage off what you just heard me say and make your life better. That's big to me, because that's something that I think I can contribute. So say I make some world champions, which is an easy thing to do, I think. If you do that, how are you contributing to the world? In what way did you help improve the world? Not much, because there's so many other people doing that. And you name all the world champions. Go. No one can do it because you forget about them the next year. So I want to make some more profound changes in the world. So that's the way I'm going to do it. My approach is a little different. So my focus is not on a competition school that can produce a world champion. I don't think that's hard, particularly if they're willing to train 10 or 12 times a week. Then my question is, how can you not be a world champion? That's my question. How can you not be producing world champions? So what I want to do is, how can I make an average person very good with only 2 hours training a week or 2.5 hours a week? Two classes a week. Now that is a challenge, right? So I want to do that, and not only make them pretty good, like competitive, but make them a better human being, more effective human being. So that's what blows my skirt up. That's what I like. That's my barometer of how I'm making progress. Can I get someone just to give me 2 nights a week for an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half a night, and I can make a big difference? That's what I want. So that's part of my work. And I get pleasure out of seeing that happen. And it's selfish in a way, like my approach, because I want to be stimulated mentally. I want to problem solve. And part of the puzzle might be, how can I make you, who can't, do a star jump, how can I get you to do a, inverted spinning omoplata out of spider guard? Right? Because if I can get you to do that, that is the puzzle solved, I like that. So to be totally frank with you, a part of it's like I love solving these little puzzles and problems, and you're the problem. So I want to solve it. So in a way, it's selfish, right? But there's nothing wrong with that. So don't feel free to judge me, but you shouldn't judge me too harshly, because what should you care if you get the outcome you want? Right? So I'm a bit outcome oriented. So I'm more so much. It doesn't matter like what my motivation is, if you get what you want. So I could get up and pretend and bullshit to you and say, oh no, I'm all about making you better at jiu-jitsu, blah, 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 blah. I call bullshit on that. And what I would say is, no, I've got to be in it for, this is almost Ayn Randish, and I don't agree with her on a lot of things, but we're talking about Ayn Rand, for those who don't know, philosopher, writer, Russian chick. But it's almost like I'm selfish in that I'm doing it for reasons that are selfish reasons. I want to solve the puzzle. It's a challenge to me to do it. It's a way of organizing my own thinking and crystallizing my own thoughts. Now, if you get an enormous benefit out of that, perfect.
Yeah, I mean it's not a one-way relationship by any means. I think it's it's quite an endearing feature that you look at bettering someone as selfish to you. I don't see that. I don't see it as that at all. And you may very well do. But being one of the people that has benefited from your instruction, I'm glad you're selfish and you wanted to see me and all the people that I've trained with improve. So
I'll give
thank
you
for
an
that.
example if you've got the time for it.
Please.
Another one is another book, which is a book that was influential to me. Where is it? I should know, but I can't see it. Is a book. Oh, it's called A Critical Path by Buckminster Fuller. Buckminster Fuller was a very smart guy, lived last century. Anyway, this is his analogy. I think it's probably one of the best analogies I've heard. So a bee goes out, and the bee, being a selfish little organism, it wants to go and gather pollen from flower to flower to flower. So in following its true nature, it is loyal to its own nature and goes and collects the pollen and brings it back to the hive. But there is an immensely, unfathomably fantastic consequence of that, in that it cross-pollinates all these flowers. Now, would it matter or not whether the bee set out on its morning saying, I want to cross-pollinate flowers or not? My answer would be no.
Yeah.
And does it matter? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And the world works beautifully because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's so locked into what it wants to do. But as long as something great happens, there's a ripple effect of it, being loyal to its true beingness.
Yeah.
If the consequence is good, then I call that good living.
Yeah.
So I think that's a kind of an easy way that people wrap their heads around the concept.
Absolutely. What a perfect metaphor. That's I really enjoy that one. Well, John, look, thank you so much for your time today. All my notes that I'm looking at now, we haven't even scratched the surface of the story that is and continues to be John Will. But thank you so much for sharing what you did share with us today. And listeners, I hope that you have really enjoyed the time that we've had with John today on Behind the Black Belt with John Will. And hopefully we can do this again, John. We've got your trips to America, the Gene LaBelles, the Chuck Norrises. We've got so much to talk about. One episode probably doesn't even come close to doing it justice. But by that thumbs up, I'm taking that as a legal contract that I've signed you up for another episode in the future.
My pleasure. Of course.
And ladies and gents, if you're ever in the Geelong area or just want to check out the academy that John has built, check it out. It is amazing. The website is www.redcatacademy.com.au. And if you also want to read more about John Will, he talks about his life, his training philosophies and things that he has learned along the way. You can find a series of books that John has written at www.rogueblackbelt.com. And I note that you can read the first chapters for free. I spent a few days ago reading your first chapter about as a child dealing with your bully that you dealt with and some of the stuff that you talked about today. Or if you want to look at anything that is Will Machado related, you can go to the website www.bjj.com.au, a great source of all your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu information. And John, this has been an unbelievable pleasure for me. I've been a big John Will fan for a very, very long time. I've got a signed copy. In fact, this is going to be embarrassing. I've got a signed copy of your Guard Fundamentals book that you signed for me in 2002, and my marker in it is a picture of me and you in 2002 when I was 19, and you were starting off your teachings for the Army back then. And you know what's really cool is the stories that I've known for 20 odd years now. I get to hear a bit of context behind them, and I very much look forward to hearing some more. And any final words before we finish up, John?
Well, thanks again for having me on. It's a real privilege to be your first guest, and I'd love to do, anytime you want to, Richie, you can call me up. I've got plenty of time most days, especially after lunchtimes most days, and I'm happy to dig deeper, or even pick a topic and we can drill down. Awesome. Now that we've got the overview, we can pick a topic and drill down. And if there's any way that I can be of help in some small way to any of the martial artists out there, or non-martial artists for that matter, I'm very happy to give a little bit of time if you can make other people make make other people more motivated or help them out in some small way. Very happy. So thanks very much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Well, ladies and gents, until next time, this is Rich signing off for Behind the Black Belt.
Behind the Black Belt is proud to support Veteran Grappling. Veteran Grappling is using the grappling arts to improve the lives of military veterans and first responders. Visit www.veterangrappling.com to learn about scholarship opportunities and more.
Join our community on Facebook and our website at www.behindtheblackbelt.com. Behind the Black Belt is a TDP Studios production. Behind the Black Belt is copyright of Richard Thapthing Thong and TDP Studios. The music used in this episode is Rocking Forward by X Take Rux and is used under an Attribution International 4.0 license.